The Grand Assembly Hall of Orbital Station Harmony glowed with soft blue light as Captain Jun Kim straightened his formal uniform. After 20 years in the Earth Diplomatic Corps, this would be his crowning achievement, humanity's first official contact with alien life. Nervous? Asked his second-in-command, Officer Hannah Yoon, checking data on her tablet. Wouldn't you be? Kim smiled, watching the Earth delegation prepare. 12 of humanity's finest. Scientists, linguists, diplomats, all selected for this historic moment. Through the viewport, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. The Confederation representatives are docking now, announced the station's eye. Kim nodded. The Galactic Confederation had existed for over 800 years according to the messages they'd exchanged. Dozens of species living in peaceful cooperation across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Humanity would be the newest addition if all went well. Remember, Kim addressed his team, this isn't just about us. We represent every human who has ever lived, and every human yet to be born. The main doors hissed open. Kim held his breath as the alien delegation entered. They were remarkable in their diversity. The lead diplomat stood nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent scales and 4 arms. Behind came beings that floated rather than walked, creatures with multiple eyes, and others that seemed almost human except for their unusual coloring. I am Ambassador Trell of the Confederation Council, the scaled being said through a translation device. We greet Earth with peaceful intentions and hope for friendship. Kim stepped forward. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we welcome you to Harmony Station. I am Captain Jun Kim. The initial exchanges went smoothly. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in human culture, asking thoughtful questions about Earth's history and social structures. After an hour of formal discussions, Kim began to relax. This was working better than anyone had hoped. Perhaps we might share a meal, suggested Ambassador Trell. Breaking bread together is a custom our people share. As they moved toward the dining area, Officer Yoon touched Kim's arm. Something feels off, she whispered. The security scans are showing unusual energy readings. Kim frowned. From where? Multiple sources. I've alerted station security, but... The first explosion cut her off mid-sentence. The blast ripped through the far wall of the assembly hall, sending debris and bodies flying. Kim was knocked to the ground, ears ringing. Everyone get down, he shouted, crawling toward a young linguist who lay bleeding nearby. Before he could reach her, a second explosion tore through the room. Through smoke and chaos, Kim saw Ambassador Trell and the alien delegation being rushed toward their ship by what appeared to be armed guards that hadn't been part of the original group. They're leaving us, shouted Engineer Park, helping a wounded scientist. Kim grabbed a communication device. Station control. Lock down all docking bays. The alien delegation is. A third explosion, larger than the first 2, cut off his transmission. The station's emergency systems activated, sealing compartments and activating fire suppression. Captain, Yoon called out. She was pinned under fallen ceiling panels, blood streaming from a head wound. Their ships are disengaging forcefully. They've destroyed the docking clamps. Through the viewport, Kim watched in disbelief as the Confederation vessels pulled away from the damaged station, leaving the human delegation behind. Get medical teams here now, Kim ordered the station eye, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. 6 hours later, Kim stood in the station's damaged communication center, facing the grim image of Admiral Sun Park on the main screen. Only 4 of the 12 human delegates had survived the attack. The Confederation leadership is claiming no responsibility, Park said, her face tight with controlled fury. They say a radical faction must have infiltrated the diplomatic team. With respect, Admiral, that's convenient, Kim replied. I was there. The explosions were precisely targeted to kill humans while leaving their escape route intact. Their security team appeared right after the first blast, armed and ready. I believe you, Kim, Park sighed. The question is what we do now. The Confederation has amassed a fleet at the edge of our solar system. They claim it's for peacekeeping after this unfortunate incident. They're preparing for war, Kim said. That's our assessment as well. Park reached for something off-screen, then held up a data chip. This is why I'm glad you survived, Captain. You've just been reassigned. Effective immediately, you're being transferred to Project Thunder. Thunder. I've never heard of it. Few have. It's been our best-kept secret for 15 years. Park's expression hardened. When we first detected alien signals, we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The HSS Thunder is humanity's insurance policy. The next day, Kim stood in stunned silence as his shuttle approached an enormous shipyard hidden on the far side of the moon. At its center floated what could only be described as a warship, but unlike anything Earth had publicly acknowledged building. "Welcome to Project Thunder," said Chief Engineer Min, greeting Kim as he disembarked. "Impressive, isn't she?" The ship was massive, at least a kilometer long, with a sleek black hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No external weapons were visible, but Kim sensed lethal purpose in every line of its design. "How long has this been under construction?" Kim asked. "The Thunder concept began 20 years ago. This vessel specifically, 8 years of building. We've been testing systems for the past 3. And no one knew." Min smiled thinly. Earth governments agreed on one thing. If we weren't alone in the universe, we needed to be prepared. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Kim saw crews working frantically to prepare for launch. The attack had accelerated all timelines. "Our latest intelligence shows the Confederation has begun attacks on our outer colonies," Min explained. "They're claiming to target terrorist bases responsible for the diplomatic incident." "That's a lie," Kim said. "Of course it is, but they have technology centuries beyond ours. Or so they think." Min stopped before a sealed door marked "Restricted" and placed her hand on a scanner. "This is what will change everything." The door opened to reveal a pulsing blue core surrounded by technical equipment Kim couldn't begin to understand. "What am I looking at?" "The reason Thunder will win this war. Technology that will make one human ship worth 100 of theirs." Min's eyes reflected the blue light. When Thunder enters battle, everything changes. 3 days later, as Kim watched final preparations from the observation deck, Admiral Park arrived unexpectedly. "The Confederation has destroyed our Proxima Centauri colony," she said without preamble. 30,000 dead. Kim closed his eyes briefly. "When do we launch?" "Tomorrow." "And Captain Kim?" "The Thunder needs a commander who understands what we're fighting for. Someone who saw firsthand what these aliens are capable of." Park handed him a small box containing commander's insignia. "The ship is yours." As Kim looked out at humanity's greatest weapon, he thought of the dead diplomats who had hoped for peace, and the colonists who never had a chance to fight back. "The Confederation thinks they know what humans are," he said quietly. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." Commander Su Li felt the gentle vibration of the Thunder's engines beneath her boots. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each person aware of the weight of their mission. Outside the massive viewports, stars streaked by as they traveled faster than light toward Proxima Centauri. "Status report," Li said, her voice calm despite the tension. Navigation Officer Jin looked up from his console. "We'll reach Proxima Centauri in 10 minutes, Commander. Long-range scans show heavy Confederation activity throughout the system." Li nodded. Her promotion to commander of Earth's most advanced warship had come suddenly. 3 days ago, she had been leading orbital defense drills around Mars. Now she stood at the helm of humanity's only hope against an alien armada. "Put the tactical display on the main screen," she ordered. The central holographic display flickered to life, showing the Proxima Centauri system. Red markers indicating Confederation vessels swarmed around the human colony world. There were hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. "Count?" Li asked. Tactical Officer Choi, a young woman with intense eyes and quick hands, studied her readings. 1,238 Confederation vessels detected, Commander. Different classes, but all heavily armed. She hesitated. There are also signs of orbital bombardment on the colony. A muscle tightened in Lee's jaw, but her expression remained steady. Life signs on the surface. Yes, the main colony shelters are holding, but they won't last much longer under sustained attack. Lee turned to address the bridge crew. All eyes were on her. These were Earth's finest, chosen for their skills, their courage, and their ability to keep cool under pressure. Many had families on Earth or in the colonies. All understood what failure would mean. We are outnumbered 1,000 to 1, she addressed her crew. But the Thunder was built for exactly this scenario. Each of you was selected because you are the best at what you do. Today, we prove that quality matters more than quantity. She moved to the center of the bridge, where a three-dimensional model of the Thunder floated above a small pedestal. This ship carries technologies no human vessel has ever deployed in combat. Adaptive shield systems that grow stronger with each hit, quantum disruption weapons that bypass conventional defenses, and most importantly, this crew. She looked at each officer in turn. We fight not just for the colonists, but for every human being everywhere. The ship's AI announced, approaching Proxima Centauri system, exiting FTL in 30 seconds. Battle stations, Lee ordered. The lighting shifted to combat mode, bathing the bridge in a soft red glow. Weapons hot, reported Choi. Shields at maximum, added Defensive Systems Officer Kwan. Engineering reports all systems optimal, said the ship's second-in-command, Han. Lee took her command chair. They don't know what we're capable of. The adaptive shield technology has never been deployed in combat. She paused, then nodded firmly. Let's show them. The Thunder dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarm signals flashed across every console. We've been detected, Choi announced. 15 Confederation cruisers breaking formation to intercept us. Let them come, Lee said. Begin recording all sensor data. Everything we learn today will help the rest of the fleet when they deploy. The main viewer showed the approaching Confederation vessels, sleek, predatory craft with gleaming hulls that shifted color as they moved. They're scanning us, reported Communications Officer Ba. Receiving transmission. On screen, Lee ordered. A being appeared on the main display. Its skin was a pale blue, with ridged features and 6 eyes arranged in a circle around what might have been a mouth. Human vessel, it said, its words translated by the ship's computer. This system is now under Confederation control. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. Lee stood, facing the alien commander. This is Commander Su Lee of the Earth Defense Force vessel Thunder. Proxima Centauri is a human colony under Earth protection. Your forces have committed an act of war. Withdraw immediately. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. One ship. Against our armada. Your species' arrogance is remarkable. Final warning, Lee said simply. Withdraw. The alien commander cut the transmission. They're powering weapons, Choi reported. Multiple missile launches detected. Lee retook her seat. Tracking systems online. Let the first wave hit our shields. Officer Kwan looked up in surprise. Commander, trust the technology, Kwan. The adaptive shields need baseline data on their weapons. The bridge crew watched tensely as dozens of missiles streaked toward them. Impact in 5 seconds, Choi announced. 4, 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered as the first missile struck. The lights flickered briefly. Shield status, Lee demanded. Kwan checked his readings, then looked up in amazement. Shields at 95% and strengthening. The adaptive algorithms are analyzing the attack pattern and energy signatures. As expected, Lee said. Now, let's respond. Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. Quantum disruptors only. Minimum power. Choi's fingers danced across her console. Target locked. Fire. A beam of shimmering energy lanced out from the thunder, connecting with the nearest Confederation cruiser. There was no explosion, no visible damage. But the alien ship suddenly went dark, drifting powerless. Direct hit, Choi reported. Their systems are completely offline. The other ships are adjusting formation, Navigation Officer Jin said. They're surrounding us. More missiles streaked toward the thunder, followed by energy beams of various colors. The ship trembled but held firm. Shields now at 110% capacity, Quan announced with growing confidence. The adaptive systems are working better than predicted. Lee leaned forward. Target the next 4 ships. Same strategy. One by one, the Confederation vessels went dark as the Thunder's weapons found their mark. The remaining ships began to pull back, clearly confused by what they were witnessing. We're receiving transmissions from the surface, Ba said suddenly. The colonists can see the battle from their shelters. They're cheering, Commander. Lee allowed herself a small smile. Open a channel to the Confederation fleet. The blue-skinned alien commander appeared again. Its circular arrangement of eyes widened in what might have been shock. This was a demonstration, Lee said calmly. We disabled 10 of your vessels without destroying them. Their crews are unharmed. Now, I will make my offer once. Withdraw from this system immediately, or we will be forced to take more permanent action. The alien was silent for a long moment. What are you? It finally asked. We are humanity, Lee answered, and we are just getting started. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation. As the transmission ended, Officer Han moved to stand beside Lee. Will they withdraw? He asked quietly. Lee watched the tactical display, where hundreds of red dots still surrounded the colony world. No, she said, but now they're afraid. And that changes everything. She turned to address the bridge crew again. The real battle is about to begin. What we've done so far was just the opening move. The Confederation forces had already overwhelmed this colony once. They won't retreat easily. Choi looked up from her console, determination in her eyes. They don't know what we're capable of yet. No, Lee agreed. They don't, and that's our advantage. The Hess Thunder drifted quietly at the heart of the Ta-CD system. After 3 weeks of hit-and-run victories against Confederation forces, Commander Lee had pushed perhaps too far. Intelligence had indicated a vulnerable supply depot here. Instead, they have found a trap. 300 ships, murmured Navigation Officer Jin, staring at the tactical display. They've been waiting for us. Commander Lee studied the holographic map showing the enemy positions. The Confederation warships had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the Thunder, blocking every possible escape route. Their formation was tightening slowly, methodically. Status report, Lee ordered, her voice betraying no fear. Shields at normal capacity, reported Defensive Systems Officer Quan. Weapons fully charged, engines responsive. Tactical Officer Choi looked up from her station. Commander, they've positioned their ships at precisely calculated distances. If we try to use our FTL drive, we'll collide with at least 6 of their vessels. They've been studying our capabilities, Lee said, nodding. Learning our tactics. The past 3 weeks had been a revelation for both sides. After the Thunder's first victory at Proxima Centauri, the ship had jumped from system to system, engaging Confederation forces wherever they threatened human outposts. Each battle had ended the same way, with Confederation ships disabled or retreating, their weapons useless against the Thunder's adaptive shields. But now, the hunter had become the hunted. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Ba. From their command ship. On screen, Lee ordered. The main viewer flickered to life, showing a large alien with rippling purple skin and 4 arms. Unlike the other Confederation commanders they had faced, this one wore elaborate armor decorated with what appeared to be battle trophies. I am Admiral Vex of the Confederation Grand Fleet, the alien announced. You have been an interesting opponent, human vessel. Your technology is unexpected. But your success ends here. Lee stood from her command chair, facing the alien admiral calmly. This is Commander Lee of the HSS Thunder. We have no quarrel with species who respect human territory. Withdraw your forces from our colonies, and we can end this conflict. Admiral Vex made a harsh sound that the translation software interpreted as laughter. You misunderstand your position, Commander. Your single ship, however advanced, now faces the combined might of the Confederation's finest vessels. Your shields cannot adapt to 300 different weapon signatures simultaneously. On the tactical display, the sphere of enemy ships continued to tighten. Final chance to surrender, came the transmission from Admiral Vex. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your technology will serve the Confederation well. Lee turned away from the screen, looking at her bridge crew. Each face showed determination despite the overwhelming odds. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return. But they also knew what the Thunder was truly capable of. Lee smiled. Deploy quantum arrays. Activate Thunderstrike protocol. The alien admiral's expression changed to one of confusion. What is this Thunderstrike protocol? We have no record of. Lee signaled to cut the transmission. Thunderstrike protocol initiated, the ship's AI announced. All personnel should secure stations. Quantum field generation commencing in 30 seconds. Throughout the ship, previously hidden panels slid open along the hull, revealing a network of crystalline structures that began to glow with blue-white light. Engineering reports all quantum arrays at full power. Second Officer Hand reported. The core is stable. Lee returned to her command chair, informed the crew. Once we begin, there's no stopping until the sequence completes. Officer Kwan's hands moved across his console, activating systems that had never been used outside of testing. Quantum field perimeter established. Ready on your mark, Commander. Outside, the Confederation ships had noticed the change in the Thunder's appearance. Several vessels opened fire, energy weapons, and missiles streaking toward the human ship. Incoming fire, Choi reported. Multiple weapon types detected. Let them come, Lee said calmly. Activate Thunderstrike. Now, what happened next would be told in stories across 1,000 worlds. The Thunder's hull shimmered as energy cascaded across its surface. The incoming weapons fire didn't impact the shields. Instead, the energy seemed to flow into the quantum arrays, making them glow brighter. Quantum field expanding, Kwan announced. 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. On the tactical display, they watched as the expanding field of energy approached the innermost ring of Confederation ships. They're increasing fire, Choi reported. All vessels now engaging. The Thunder shuddered under the assault, but with each impact, the quantum arrays glowed more intensely. Shields at 150% capacity and rising, Kwan said, his voice filled with wonder despite having studied the theoretical models. The energy conversion is exceeding expected parameters. The view screen showed the spectacular sight. Hundreds of energy weapons and missiles striking the Thunder simultaneously, their power being absorbed and redirected into the growing quantum field. Field expansion at 30 kilometers, Kwan reported. First enemy vessels now within the perimeter. As the quantum field touched the Confederation ships, their lights flickered and died. One by one, the massive alien vessels went silent, all systems failing as the field disrupted their power sources. It's working, Jin whispered. Quantum field at 50 kilometers and expanding, Kwan continued. 47 enemy vessels disabled. Admiral Vex's command ship, positioned near the outer edge of the formation, sent another transmission. The alien's face now showed clear alarm. What is this weapon? Vex demanded. Stop this immediately. Lee stood again. You surrounded us. Admiral, you threatened our colonies. You left us no choice but to demonstrate our full capabilities. On the tactical display, more and more red dots representing Confederation ships turned gray as they lost power. Some of the outer vessels began breaking formation, attempting to flee. 112 ships disabled, Choi reported. The remaining vessels are retreating, Commander. Quantum field at maximum expansion, 90 kilometers, Quan announced. Power levels stabilizing. Lee watched as the once mighty Confederation fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships that had escaped the quantum field were jumping to FTL, abandoning their disabled companions. Begin power down sequence, Lee ordered. Secure the quantum arrays. As the blue-white glow faded from the Thunder's hull, the bridge crew allowed themselves to exchange looks of relief and pride. The impossible had happened. A single human vessel had defeated a fleet. Status of disabled enemy vessels. Lee asked. Life support systems appear to be functioning on emergency power, Choi reported. No casualties detected. They're simply paralyzed. Lee nodded with satisfaction. Open a channel to Admiral Vex's ship. The alien admiral appeared on screen again, his vessel one of the few that had escaped the quantum field's effect. Your fleet is disabled but not destroyed, Lee said. Their crews will survive, but their ships will require extensive repairs. Consider this a demonstration of restraint, not just power. Admiral Vex was silent for a long moment. This technology, it changes everything. Yes, Lee agreed simply. It does. I suggest you inform your Confederation leaders that they have significantly underestimated humanity. We seek peace, but we are prepared for war. As the transmission ended, Navigation Officer Jin looked up. Course, Commander. Lee studied the tactical display, where the scattered remnants of the once mighty fleet were still visible. Set course for Earth. It's time the rest of the fleet received the Thunderstrike upgrades. The Thunder's engines hummed to life, carrying the ship past the silent, drifting hulks of Confederation vessels. What had been intended as a trap had instead become the turning point of the war. The HSS Thunder glided into Earth's orbital shipyard 2 weeks after the battle at Ta City. Commander Lee stood at the viewport, watching as repair teams swarmed over the ship's hull. Despite its revolutionary technology, the Thunder hadn't escaped completely unscathed. Quite a view, said Admiral Park, stepping onto the observation deck beside Lee. The yard seems busier than I expected, Lee replied, noting the unusual activity throughout the massive space facility. Admiral Park smiled. That's what I wanted to show you. She gestured toward a distant section of the shipyard where massive barriers had been erected. Security Clearance Alpha. Follow me. They traveled by shuttle to the restricted area. As they passed through the final security checkpoint, Lee gasped involuntarily. Before her stood not one, but 5 massive vessels identical to the Thunder, in various stages of completion. How is this possible? Lee asked. I was told the Thunder was a prototype. That was the official story, Park explained, as they walked along a gantry overlooking the nearest ship. In truth, Project Thunder always included plans for a full battle group. We began construction on these vessels the day after the diplomatic incident. Your success at Ta City accelerated the final assembly. Workers in spacesuits moved across the hulls, installing the distinctive quantum arrays that had proven so effective against the Confederation fleet. They HSS Lightning, Storm, Tempest, Hurricane, and Cyclone, Park said, pointing to each ship in turn. Together with the Thunder, they'll form humanity's first strike fleet. When will they be ready? Lee asked. The Lightning and Storm will be operational within 3 days. The others will follow within 2 weeks. Park turned to face Lee directly. I want you to command the fleet. Lee shook her head. I'm not an admiral. You are now. Park handed her a small box containing Admiral's insignia. The promotion ceremony is tomorrow. The United Earth government is unanimous on this. No one else has your combat experience against Confederation forces. As Lee accepted the box, her communication device chimed. Excuse me, Admiral, she said, checking the message. It's from the Thunder. Intelligence Officer Song has found something in the data we captured. They returned to the Thunder immediately. In the ship's secure briefing room, Intelligence Officer Song waited with several data displays activated. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Song said. "During our last engagement at Ta City, we captured a Confederation scout vessel mostly intact. I've been analyzing their communication logs." Song brought up a series of transmissions on the main screen. These messages weren't sent through normal Confederation channels. They used an encrypted frequency we hadn't detected before. "Can you decode them?" Park asked. "Already done." Song tapped her console, and the alien symbols transformed into readable text. They're communications between certain Confederation ship captains and a species called the Drek. Lee leaned forward, studying the messages. "I don't recall the Drek from our briefings on Confederation species." "Because they're not officially part of the Confederation," Song explained. "According to these logs, they operate from outside, influencing Confederation policy through a network of agents." Song highlighted a specific message. "This is the most important one. Dated 3 days before the diplomatic incident that started this war." Lee read aloud. "The human delegation must not leave the meeting alive. Our agents will ensure necessary evidence points to human aggression. The Confederation Council will have no choice but to authorize military action." "They wanted war between us," said Intelligence Officer Song, reviewing the evidence. "The Confederation has been manipulated." Admiral Park's expression hardened. "The question is why? What do these Drek gain from a human Confederation war?" Song brought up another display showing star charts. "Based on communication patterns, I've pinpointed the likely location of the Drek homeworld. It's here, in unclaimed space between Confederation territory and another interstellar power called the Collective." "Two major powers," Lee said thoughtfully, "with the Drek caught between them." "Exactly." Song nodded. "My analysis suggests the Drek want humans and the Confederation to destroy each other, weakening both sides. Then the Drek would emerge as the dominant power in this sector." Lee turned to Admiral Park. "We need to share this with the Confederation." "That won't be easy," Park cautioned. "After Ta City, they're not likely to trust any message from us. Then we need to find someone who will listen." Lee studied the captured communications. These messages mentioned specific ships with captains who weren't part of the Drek conspiracy. "We start with them." 3 days later, the Thunder and the newly commissioned Lightning approached a neutral trading post at the edge of Confederation space. Lee had chosen this location carefully. It was frequented by independent merchants from many species, including Confederation members. "We're being scanned," reported Tactical Officer Choi from her station on the Thunder's bridge. "Let them look," Lee replied, "but maintain defensive posture. We're here to talk, not fight." "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Bai announced. "It's from a Confederation diplomatic vessel. They're requesting to speak with you directly." "On screen," Lee ordered. The view screen showed an alien with delicate blue-green features and large eyes. Lee recognized the species as Vrel, one of the founding members of the Confederation. "I am Ambassador Tellus," the alien said. "Your message mentioned evidence of manipulation. I represent those within the Confederation who have questioned the wisdom of this conflict from the beginning." Lee nodded respectfully. "Ambassador, we have proof that neither humans nor the Confederation Council were responsible for the attack that began this war. With your permission, I'd like to send you the evidence we've gathered." "Proceed," Tellus said cautiously. Lee signaled to Song, who transmitted the decoded messages. They watched as Tellus reviewed the information, the alien's expression changing to one of shock. "These communications, if verified, they change everything," Tellus said finally. "The Council must see this." "There's more," Lee said. "We've located what we believe is the Drek homeworld. They'd been playing our civilizations against each other while building their own forces." Tellus was silent for a long moment. "What do you propose, Admiral Lee?" "An alliance. Temporary if necessary. We combine our intelligence and forces to confront the true enemy. Many in the Confederation will resist cooperation with humans," Tellus warned. "Your ships have destroyed much of our fleet." "Disabled," not destroyed, Lee corrected. We avoided casualties wherever possible precisely because we suspected something wasn't right about this war. Ambassador Tellis conferred with others off-screen before responding. I will bring your evidence to key council members. In the meantime, I am authorized to establish a communication protocol between our forces. No further hostilities while we investigate these claims. Agreed, Lee said. As the transmission ended, Admiral Park stepped into view. An uneasy first step, she observed. But an important one, Lee replied. While you complete the strike fleet, I'll work with any Confederation allies we can find. We'll need both sides to face what's coming. On the main tactical display, a new star chart appeared showing the suspected location of the Drek homeworld. Beyond it lay the territories of the mysterious collective, another potential player in this widening conflict. The real war, Lee said quietly, is just beginning. The combined fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Drek system. 6 human Thunder-class warships led the formation, their black hulls absorbing the light of the distant sun. Behind them came 30 Confederation vessels of various designs, their colorful markings standing in stark contrast to the utilitarian human ships. On the bridge of the HSS Thunder, Admiral Lee studied the tactical display. The past month had transformed the war. After sharing the evidence of Drek manipulation with the Confederation Council, a fragile alliance had formed between the former enemies. Drek planetary defenses activating, reported Tactical Officer Choi. They've detected our arrival. As expected, Lee replied calmly. Status of the fleet. All ships in position, said Communications Officer Ba. Confederation vessels confirm battle readiness. The main view screen showed the Drek homeworld, a rust-colored planet surrounded by orbital stations and defense platforms. Dozens of warships moved to protective positions. They have considerable defenses, observed Ambassador Tellis, who had joined the Thunder for this mission. The blue-skinned diplomat had become the strongest advocate for cooperation with humans within the Confederation. But nothing compared to our combined fleet, Lee said. And they didn't expect us to discover their deception so quickly. Their plan relied on a prolonged war between our peoples. Intelligence Officer Song approached with a data tablet. Final analysis of Drek communications confirms our suspicions. They've been playing this game for centuries, pitting various Confederation species against each other, then offering mediation services. Each conflict increased their influence and wealth. And now they tried the same trick with humanity, Lee said, a hint of anger in her voice. They underestimated both our technology and our ability to seek the truth. Incoming transmission from the Drek Planetary Authority, Bay announced. On screen, Lee ordered. The view screen showed a being unlike any they had encountered before. The Drek had gray, mottled skin with multiple sensory stalks protruding from a central mass. When it spoke, its words were translated by both human and Confederation systems. Unidentified fleet, you have entered Drek sovereign space. State your purpose or withdraw immediately. Lee stepped forward. This is Admiral Lee of the Human Confederation Allied Fleet. We come in response to acts of war committed by your government against both our civilizations. The Drek representative's sensory stalks twitched. These accusations are unfounded. The Drek are neutral mediators in galactic affairs. We have no quarrel with either humans or the Confederation. We have evidence proving otherwise, Lee replied. Your agents engineered the conflict between our peoples. You arranged the attack on the human diplomatic delegation and manipulated evidence to ensure war would follow. Ambassador Tellis moved to stand beside Lee. The Confederation Council has reviewed this evidence and found it conclusive. Your deception has been exposed. The Drek representative went silent for several moments. When it spoke again, its tone had changed. These are internal matters of galactic security. The Drek Supreme Authority will discuss these concerns only with proper diplomatic representatives, not the military fleet. Withdraw your forces and appropriate channels can be established. Lee shook her head. The time for that has passed. Your orbital platforms are preparing weapons. Your fleet is moving to attack positions. You're not interested in diplomatic solutions." She cut the transmission with a gesture. "They're stalling," said Song. "Our intelligence shows they're activating a planetary shield system." "Then we move now," Lee decided. All ships advanced to Phase 1 positions. The combined fleet began moving toward the planet in perfect formation. Human vessels took the lead, their advanced shields prepared to absorb the first wave of attacks. "Drek vessels launching," Choi reported. 50 ships on intercept course. "Hold fire," Lee ordered. "Let them make the first move." The Drek ships accelerated rapidly, their weapons charging. Seconds later, energy beams lashed out toward the Thunder and its sister ships. "Shields holding," reported Defensive Systems Officer Kwan. "Adaptive systems responding as expected." Lee watched as the energy weapons struck the Thunder's shields, only to be absorbed and redirected. "All Thunder-class vessels deploy quantum arrays. Targeted disruption only. Disable their ships, don't destroy them." The human warships activated their most powerful systems. Shimmering fields of blue-white energy expanded from each vessel, reaching out toward the approaching Drek fleet. As the fields touched the enemy ships, their systems failed one by one, leaving them drifting helplessly. "First wave neutralized," Choi announced. "No casualties." Lee nodded in satisfaction. Confederation vessels advanced to Phase 2 positions. Target orbital defense platforms. The alien ships of the Alliance moved forward, their diverse weapons systems firing in coordinated patterns. Within minutes, the Drek orbital defenses began to fall. "We have them surrounded," said Admiral Lee as the fleet formed a sphere around the planet. "All weapons are locked." She reopened communications with the Drek homeworld. This time, a different representative appeared, one wearing elaborate decorations that suggested higher authority. "I am Supreme Director Malk of the Drek Authority," the alien said. "This unprovoked attack on our peaceful world will have serious consequences. The Collective will not allow such aggression to stand." "The Collective?" Lee raised an eyebrow. "Your other allies. Our intelligence suggests they're as much victims of your manipulations as we were." Ambassador Tellis stepped forward. "We have already shared our evidence with Collective leadership. They have declined to intervene on your behalf." For the first time, the Drek leader showed signs of genuine concern. "What do you want?" it asked. "Your unconditional surrender," Lee answered, followed by a full accounting of all Drek operations throughout this sector of the galaxy. "And if we refuse?" Malk challenged. Lee's expression remained calm but resolute. "Then we have no choice but to demonstrate the full capabilities of our fleet." She signaled to Choi, who activated a targeted quantum pulse aimed at an uninhabited moon orbiting the Drek planet. The energy burst struck the small celestial body, creating a spectacular display as portions of its surface temporarily destabilized. "That was 5% of our combined firepower," Lee explained. "We come offering choice, not extinction. Surrender and face justice, or fight and be destroyed." The Supreme Director conferred frantically with others off-screen. The Drek leadership, seeing their plans unraveled, expected annihilation. But Lee had insisted on this approach despite opposition from some military advisors who had advocated for a more aggressive strategy. Finally, Malk returned to the screen. "The Drek Authority accepts your terms. We will surrender." 6 hours later, Lee stood in the Thunder's conference room with Ambassador Tellis and representatives from both human and Confederation forces. Before them, displayed on multiple screens, was the evidence being transmitted from the Drek Central Archives. Hundreds of years of manipulation, deception, and engineered conflicts. "It's more extensive than we imagined," Tellis said, reviewing the data. "They've been influencing Confederation policy for generations. And they would have done the same to Earth if we hadn't stopped them," Lee added. A junior officer entered the room. "Admiral, the first transport shuttles are ready. Confederation peacekeeping forces can begin landing on the planet." Lee nodded. "Proceed according to the agreement. Minimal military presence, focused on government centers only. As the officer left, Ambassador Tellis turned to Lee. The Confederation Council is preparing a formal alliance proposal for humanity. Not just a temporary measure, but a permanent relationship. Earth will consider it carefully, Lee replied. We've learned a lot about each other through this conflict. Not all of it bad. Indeed. Tellis made a gesture that Lee had learned was a sign of respect among the ambassador's species. Humans were seen as dangerous primitives by many in the Confederation. Now you are respected as powerful, but just allies. Lee smiled slightly. And we've learned that the galaxy is more complex than we imagined. We need allies, not enemies. 3 weeks later, the Thunder led the human vessels back toward Earth. Behind them, a new Joint Human Confederation administration was overseeing the Drek transition and ensuring all their hidden operations were revealed. Lee stood on the observation deck, watching the stars streak by. Captain Kim, the diplomat who had survived the original attack that started the war, joined her. Thinking about what comes next, Kim asked. The Thunder was built for war, Lee said, gesturing at the massive ship around them. All of this technology, all of this power, it was created because we feared what waited for us out there. And it saved us, Kim pointed out. Yes, but not in the way we expected. Lee turned to face the viewport again. The Confederation ships we disabled rather than destroyed, the restraint we showed even when we had overwhelming power, those choices mattered as much as our technology. Kim nodded. The Thunder will become a symbol of peace now, proof that sometimes strength must be demonstrated before cooperation can begin. As they spoke, a message arrived from Earth. New orders for the Thunder and its sister ships, not deployment to battlefronts, but assignments as diplomatic escorts, scientific expedition guards, and rapid response vessels for emergencies throughout human and Confederation space. It seems our mission has changed, Lee said after reading the orders. Not changed, Kim corrected her. Evolved, just as we have. The Thunder continued its journey homeward, no longer a lone warship fighting against impossible odds, but the flagship of a new era in galactic relations. The ship that had entered battle and changed everything was itself transformed, from a weapon of war to a guardian of a fragile but hopeful peace. The end.